What if Tanjiro met a different Hashira? Have you ever wondered what would have happened if Tanjiro hadn't met Ju that snowy night? What if it was Sanemi, Mitsuri, or even Abanai who found him and Nezuko instead? Would any of them have shown mercy? Or would they have ended Tanjiro's story before it even began? Let's start with Sanemi, the Wind Hashira. He's known for his brutality and hatred toward demons, and that hatred runs deep. If he saw Nezuko protecting Tanjiro, he wouldn't hesitate. In his mind, a demon is still a demon. One clean strike, and Nezuko would be gone. Tanjiro would drop to his knees, broken. Sanemi might spare him out of pity, but without Nezuko or a mentor, Tanjiro's path would end quickly. He'd wander alone, hunting weak demons until one day he met one far stronger and never came back. But what if fate led him to Mitsuri Kanroji, the love Hashira? Unlike Sanemi, Mitsuri's heart overflows with kindness. Seeing Nezuko defend her brother would melt her completely. She'd take them both under her wing, moved by their story. Tanjiro would train under her, not in water breathing, but in love breathing. The problem? This style relies on flexibility and speed, two things Tanjiro struggles with. Despite his determination, he'd never reach his true potential. When the time came to awaken sun breathing, his body wouldn't be ready. His strikes would lack the power to unleash it fully. In this world, Tanjiro would still fight bravely, but never become the hero we know. And then, there's Abanai Iguro, the Serpent Hashira. Cold, strict, unforgiving. If Abanai found Tanjiro traveling with a demon sister, he wouldn't even let him speak. Nezuko? Cut down instantly. Tanjiro? Wounded or dead seconds later. For Abanai, emotion means nothing. The core's code is absolute. In his reality, Tanjiro's story ends before it begins. Another tragedy buried in the snow. But not every Hashira would be so cruel. If Shinobu Kocho had been the one to meet him, things might have gone differently. At first, she might have attacked, thinking Nezuko just another demon. But seeing her protect Tanjiro would stop her blade mid-swing. It would remind her of her sister and of the humanity she lost. Instead of killing them, Shinobu might spare the siblings and take Tanjiro under her care. He'd train in insect breathing, mastering poisons and precision strikes. But this technique was built to compensate for Shinobu's lack of strength, not enhance it. For someone like Tanjiro, who thrives on endurance and power, it'd be a poor fit. His strikes would sting, but never crush. Against lower moons, maybe he'd survive. Against upper moons, not a chance. Each Hashira would shape Tanjiro's destiny differently. Some would destroy him. Others might guide him, but down weaker paths. And only a few would truly understand his heart. So what if the one who found him was Rengoku? Would the flame Hashira ignite Tanjiro's will, or burn it out completely? Fire. What if Tanjiro met Rengoku, Tenjin, or Gyomei? So, let's imagine the one who found Tanjiro that night wasn't Ju or Sanemi, but Kaijiro Rengoku, the flame Hashira. Would the story of Demon Slayer burn brighter, or end in ashes? Rengoku is a man of honor, a warrior of discipline, yet full of compassion. Unlike Sanemi, he believes that strength exists to protect the weak. So if he saw Nezuko defending her brother instead of attacking him, he'd stop, his fiery eyes widening with surprise. Rengoku would listen. He'd see the humanity still glowing in her heart, and the pain in Tanjiro's eyes. Instead of slaying them, he'd take Tanjiro under his wing, teaching him flame breathing. And this time, it would fit. Flame breathing is powerful, physical, and emotionally charged, just like Tanjiro's spirit. Under Rengoku's guidance, his strikes would grow sharper, his heart stronger. His burning determination would fuse perfectly with the heat of the flame. By the time he faced Rue, Tanjiro wouldn't be the struggling boy from the original timeline. He'd be a warrior capable of cutting through the threads of fate itself. He'd still be gentle, still human, but far stronger than before. But what if fate twisted again, and instead of Rengoku, Tanjiro met Tenjin Yuzi, the Sound Hashira? Tenjin lives for flash, flare, and perfection. His world is music, rhythm, and battle. He'd never pity a demon, but he might admire Tanjiro's bravery. The problem is, Tenjin's judgment is fast and loud. He doesn't hesitate. If he saw Nezuko, he'd likely strike before asking a single question. However, let's say Tanjiro managed to block or plead, just long enough for Tenjin to pause. Intrigued, The flamboyant shinobi might spare them both, but only out of curiosity. He'd test Tanjiro, push him through brutal training, teaching him sound breathing, a style built on explosive movement and sensory awareness. Tanjiro's keen nose would make him a natural fit for it. His instincts would turn rhythm into prediction, a way to hear an enemy's intent. But there's a dark side to this. Sound breathing burns energy fast. Even with Tanjiro's endurance, he'd tire quickly. Against demons like Akaza, that could mean death in minutes. Still, for a brief moment, the boy with the scar would become a walking symphony of fury and grace before the music stopped. And finally, let's picture something entirely different. Jyomi Himejima, the stone Hashira, the strongest of them all. A gentle giant whose heart weeps for the world, yet whose faith makes him unbreakable. If Jyomi had met Tanjiro and Nezuko, he wouldn't attack. He'd sense the purity of their souls, the love binding them stronger than any curse. Instead of a fight, there would be silence, a prayer. He'd take them both under his protection, training Tanjiro in stone breathing, a style of absolute strength and stability. Tanjiro's body would harden, his strikes heavier than ever. He'd learn to channel power through emotion, faith instead of rage. And when the time came to face the upper moons, this version of Tanjiro would stand like a mountain, unshakable, unbreakable. Even Muzan himself would struggle to move him. Each of these meetings would create a new destiny. Under Rengoku, Tanjiro's soul would blaze like fire. Under Tenjin, he'd dance through chaos with deadly rhythm. And under Jyomi, he'd become the embodiment of unwavering strength. But there's still one question left. What if Tanjiro met Michiro Takedo, the mist Hashira, the boy who feels nothing at all? Fog. What if Tanjiro met Michiro, Shinobu, or no one at all? Now let's imagine something colder. The mist is thick, the forest quiet, and instead of Ju, Tanjiro meets Michiro Takedo, the mist Hashira. Michiro doesn't feel emotions. He doesn't think, he acts. Logic drives him, not compassion. To him, a demon is an enemy. If he saw Nezuko, there'd be no hesitation, no warning, just the clean swing of a blade. Nezuko would fall before Tanjiro could speak, and if he tried to defend her, Michiro's mist would swallow him too. No hatred, no cruelty, just duty. And that's what makes it terrifying. Because Tanjiro wouldn't even die as a sinner, just as a name the core forgot. But there's one Hashira who could change that. The insect Hashira, Shinobu Kocho. Unlike Michiro, she hides her anger behind a smile. At first glance, she seems kind, even gentle, until you realize that every one of her smiles hides deep hatred for demons. So what would happen if she met Tanjiro and Nezuko that night? At first, she'd attack. She'd move like lightning, her sword thin as a needle. But when she saw Nezuko protect her brother, not feed on him, something inside her would break. It would remind her of her sister, of the humanity she lost long ago. Shinobu would lower her blade. And for the first time, she'd ask, why? Why would a demon protect a human? Hearing Tanjiro's trembling voice and seeing his devotion, she'd decide to take him in. She'd teach him insect breathing, a style of precision, grace, and poison. But this breathing wasn't made for power. It was designed for Shinobu's fragile body, to pierce, not crush. For Tanjiro, it would be limiting. His endurance, his rage, his passion, none of it could bloom in such a narrow cage. He'd be fast, yes, deadly even, but when he met a true upper moon, his strikes would sting, not kill. Still, Shinobu's compassion would shape him deeply. He'd fight with empathy, with understanding, and maybe, just maybe, he'd bring peace to her heart. Even if he fell, his death would mean something, because he'd die believing in connection, not hatred. But now, let's ask the darkest question of all. What if Tanjiro never met any Hashira? No Ju, no Urokadaki, no one. He'd grow up alone, a broken boy carrying his sister's lifeless body through snow. He'd wander between villages, chasing rumors of demons, driven only by vengeance. Without breathing techniques, without a mentor, his rage would consume him. He'd become faster, stronger, but his humanity would fade. And in time, he'd become the very thing he swore to destroy. In one world, Tanjiro becomes a hero, the sun breather who ends Muzan. In another, he's just another name in the mist. Every Hashira would lead him down a different road: fire, love, poison, or stone. But one thing never changes: his heart. No matter the teacher, no matter the path, Tanjiro would always fight for love, even when the world gave him nothing back. Because that's what makes him who he is. Not power, not destiny, but kindness. The one thing even demons could never burn away. Drop of blood.